Distrust in the news is ever more popular among Americans, and for good reason. As an example, CNN is known to be controlled by just one person and is one of the 20 or so other networks, including Discovery Channel and True TV. And while competitor news networks such as Fox News are similarly questionable in their truthfulness, the fact is that misinformation and disinformation are simply too rampant in American news. Unfortunately, this trend of questionably reliable information carries through to the reports on the Inflation Reduction Act and its changes to the EV tax credit. But why specifically about the Inflation Reduction Act? I mean, I know it's a polarizing topic between liberals and conservatives. Could it be that it's politically motivated? Yes, but I don't think it is. I actually think it's down to one simple fact, but at the risk of stirring up some controversy, I will say this. Rather predictably, CNN does have something to do with the story, but surprisingly, they might just be the most correct in this ordeal. Hello people of the internet, I'm Nico, and this is now my third video on the Inflation Reduction Act, more specifically its concerns to the EV tax credit, and today I will try to clarify the misinformation surrounding the Inflation Reduction Act. Now, why the misinformation is so prominent with the Inflation Reduction Act in particular is fairly straightforward. The Inflation Reduction Act is a massive legal document written in a speak you think you understand when you regularly watch Law and Order, but in reality, doth be as unfathomable as Old English. Just as an example, take a look at the definition of a clean new vehicle. It has like 20 subsections and is like a page and a half long, and for someone who has neither a law degree nor has spent any amount of time watching Law and Order, that definition is frankly ridiculous and impossible to understand. So, I can understand why someone would make a mistake when reporting on it, since no normal member of the general public spends their Tuesday afternoon reading through a legal document that's several hundred pages long. Luckily for you, I spent my Tuesday afternoon reading through it, and let me tell you, it's not a fun read. The point I'm getting at here is the Inflation Reduction Act is a complex document that most people don't have the educational background to understand, and so it's up to the media to try and unpack it and dumb it down so that little Timmy can understand the media's agenda that is being pushed. This translation process from legal speak to English proves to be very difficult though, so much so that the IRS is having to release some clarification on manufacturing requirements for electric vehicles. While they're at it, the IRS needs to give some clarification on what exactly an SUV is defined as, because I could not find any definition in the Inflation Reduction Act. The word definition appears in the document 129 times. I've looked at each and every one, and there was no instance where the word definition was attached to the letters S, U, and V, which is really important because this is where the misinformation is causing trouble. If you look at Car and Driver, a site I think most people consider to be trustworthy when it comes to car news, they state that the Tesla Model Y, clearly an SUV, is under the $55,000 limit for cars, not the $80,000 limit for SUVs that the IRS now puts it under. And the same goes for other websites and for other cars. Electrek and Teslarati, both trustworthy sites to my knowledge, state that the Model Y and similar EVs like the Ford Mustang Mach-E are under the $55,000 limit, not the $80,000 limit. But why? Why is the IRS putting the Model Y and the Mustang Mach-E under the $80,000 limit when seemingly trustworthy news sites are reporting otherwise? The answer might lie with CNN. I promised CNN would also be a part of this story, and in fact they are, just not really the way you might have expected. CNN Business published an article on January 30th all about Ford dropping the price of their Mustang Mach-E to be on par with the price of the Model Y. It goes on and on about Ford finally dropping the price and why they had increased the price several months prior, but at the bottom of the page it gets interesting. They state that the two-row Model Y and the Mustang Mach-E are under the $55,000 limit, whereas the three-row Model Y is under the $80,000 limit. Now, if that is true, that would help explain why Car and Driver, Electrek, and Teslarati all stated that the Tesla and the Ford were under the $55,000 limit. But when looking through the Inflation Reduction Act, I couldn't find anything explaining why having a third row would justify getting an extra $25,000 to spend on a Model Y and still get the tax credit. So I had to do a little extra digging, and it turns out that this issue of trying to define what an SUV is has hit in a lot of places. For example, Cadillac was surprised recently when their latest EV, the Lyriq, was classified as a car and therefore was put under the $55,000 limit. Now, you tell me, does this look like a car or an SUV? Other weird cases include the Volkswagen ID.4, where the models with one electric motor were classified as a car, while the models with two electric motors were classified as an SUV. May I ask, what is the big difference with all-wheel drive versus two-wheel drive? I mean, there are cars with all-wheel drive and SUVs with two-wheel drive, so how could the IRS conclude that one or the other is an SUV? I don't understand their logic, but it's reasonable to assume that this same dilemma affected the Tesla Model Y and the Mustang Mach-E, and that is why websites are reporting what is now, as you're about to find out, false information. This put the IRS under some pressure to clarify what an SUV is, and while writing the script for this video, I found out that they did. All the SUVs that were once seen as cars are now under the appropriate $80,000 limit you can see for yourself on the IRS's website. It also means that my statements in my previous video are proven correct, and all the websites that stated that the Model Y and the Mustang Mach-E were under the $55,000 limit now need to go back and update their articles. We are not out of the woods just yet, though. We're still waiting on clarification for the material sourcing requirements of the EV tax credit. Hopefully that information will be made public at the beginning of March, but it's possible that information doesn't reach us until a later date. If you want to know why you should buy an EV before these clarifications are made, you should watch my last video. That'll pop up here in just a sec. Until next time, people of the internet, peace out.